Hello and welcome back to day 3 of ranking Starrcade and Bound for Glory here on DwreckTV. I'm Dwreck. And today's day 3, and you know what that means? We got the N64 back out, and oh boy. The things that I've said throughout this whole year, talking about top 10s for the N64, then talking about the Attitude Era of WrestleManias. Now we're going into the Attitude Era for Starrcade. As everybody already knows, this era was just on fire. This era was exciting from both companies, even ECW. This whole time was just, like I said, on fire. On everything, with wrestling, with shows, with movies, music, culture in general. From 96 to 2001 was an, I don't want to say just an amazing, but it was a time you had to experience for yourself. And with that being said, we're going into 96 to 2001 with Starrcade. And to start things off with this one, we're going to be jumping straight into Starrcade 1996. Or they say it's 90, they say 97, but that was whenever the video came out, but it was really in 96. This Starrcade, the whole thing that surrounded this one was the ongoing feud between Hollywood Hogan and Roddy Piper. Ever since the days of WrestleMania 1, the war to settle the score. And they wanted to finally settle it right here at Starrcade 96. Because Piper had came in around October of that year, saying he wanted to finally settle the score with Hogan and to have the quote-unquote match of the century. And that match was alright, even though it wasn't for the WCW World title, because Hogan was champion at this time. It was a good match. Other than Hogan and Piper, they had, on this show, they had guys like Jushin Thunder Liger from New Japan against Rey Mysterio Jr., they had DDP, Diamond Dallas Page against Eddie Guerrero for the U.S. title. They had Jeff Jarrett fighting Chris Benoit. They had Dean Malenko fighting Ultimo Dragon. Lex Luger fighting the Giant. And the Faces of Fear fighting the Outsiders. This was a pretty stacked card. All topping it off with Hogan and Piper. Even though Hogan and Piper weren't at the peak of their careers at this time, not like how they used to be in like the mid to late 80s going into 1990s, but it was still an enjoyable show altogether, especially with Sting making his appearances as the Crow Sting, as everybody wants to call him, but I call him like the black and white Sting because he would just look cool. And especially with the Giant jumping in between WCW and the NWO, it was like where his real allegiance lie. But other than that, Starrcade 1996, the whole show was really cool and really good. Like a very solid show from top to bottom. But the feud between Hogan and Piper, even though they weren't at their peak at this time, like they was really starting to wind down. Especially Piper has no business being in the ring anymore, especially with a replay of artificial hip and everything. But where would I rank Starrcade 96? I would go on a whim and say it was a low 8. Even though it wasn't that good of a main event, especially not being for the WCW World title. The whole show was really good. I'm not gonna lie. This was a really good show from top to bottom. Especially with Liger and Rey Mysterio Jr. and DDP and Eddie Guerrero. The whole show was good. Really good stuff right here. Oh man. Now we're getting into some serious shit. Starrcade 97. This right here. If you want to talk about one of the most epic nights, one of those times that it just seemed like everything was held in the balance. Everything, the entire company's history, the entire company's future was hanging in the balance on this one. Between Sting and Hollywood Hogan for the WCW World title. I would have to say, I do remember seeing this one. And I just thought this was like a big deal because the NWO was running roughshod throughout the entire year. Sting was just a vigilante, that silent protector, and just playing mind games with Hogan and the NWO throughout the entire year. And then they finally faced off at Starrcade in the main event for the WCW World title. The entire show just felt like a big deal. This was like, we don't know what's going to happen after, like going into Monday Nitro and such. But other than Sting and Hogan, this whole night was great. They had guys like Eddie Guerrero fighting Dean Malenko. They had Goldberg on there. Saturn was fighting Chris Benoit with Raven in his side. Diamond Dallas Page was fighting Mr. Perfect. And Larry Zbyszko fighting Eric Bischoff for control of Monday Nitro. And then topping it all off with Hogan and Sting for the world title. Even though many people want to say that it was a screw job because this was also coming off the Montreal screw job in the WWF. And Bret Hart had just debuted with WCW. And it's like, come on, y'all. And everybody wants to keep Montreal screw job this, screw job that, blah, 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 blah. Shut up. I'm so tired of hearing a freaking screw job. But other than that, it just seemed like Hogan was gonna retain the title, but then Bret Hart saying like, not on my watch. Like, this ain't happening again. And Sting finally won the title, holding the belt up high, and all the WCW guys just stormed the ring, just celebrating with him. That was a feel-good moment that the likes that we may never see again. But Starrcade 97, automatic S-rank. Automatic S-rank. The entire night was good. The build-up, the whole shebang was good. Starrcade 97, you can't ask for more for this. This was peak WCW within the Attitude Era. You can't go wrong with this one. If you ever get a chance, check out Starrcade 97, or if that, go on YouTube and such, like find all the shows from 97 leading up to this. It's a freaking banger. WCW Starrcade 97, epic night. One word to describe it, epic. And then, now as we go on, we go into 1998, Starrcade 98. I do remember watching this. This was when my uncle came over with the box. My uncle came over with the box, and we all had a great time during this night. Throughout the entire pay-per-view, it just felt like a big deal. It felt like Starrcade 98, like Starrcade is the biggest night of the year, the granddaddy of them all. Felt like saving the best for last. And throughout the entire night, it was really good. It was entertaining. Everybody was having a good time during that night. And the matches with Kidman, Rey Mysterio Jr. and Juventud Guerrera for the Cruiserweight title was good. And then Kidman jumping in to take on Eddie Guerrero. That was good. And even Chris Jericho fighting Conan to defend the TV title. That was a good one too. All the matches were really good. But Eric Bischoff fighting Ric Flair. It was oh, come on. Like the whole night, that whole match was like, why are we doing this? I mean, Flair could have easily beat him, but the way it just ended, it was like, come on. And then having Diamond Dallas Page fight the Giant, that was a good one. And then capping it all off with Kevin Nash fighting Goldberg, an undefeated Goldberg for the heavyweight title. And they wanted to put it as a no DQ. Come on. And then we all know how that ended. Scott Hall, dressed as a security guard, zaps Goldberg with a stun gun. And then Nash beats him and gives him his first loss. At Starrcade. At Starrcade of all places. I was like, oh, come. I was destroyed I was destroyed. Like, I was like, this can't be happy. Can't be happy. He can't lose the streak at Starrcade. And I was like, he got robbed. He got beat. He got he got robbed. It was highway robbery. I was like, oh, I was disappointed. Everybody was disappointed. Like, oh, come on. Like, if Goldberg was gonna lose, at least hold like, not like that. That was a big disappointment. But other than that, the whole show was good. I look back on this and just think of the whole time that everybody came over and we all watched the Starrcade and everything, had barbecues and everything. I love things like that. But where would I rank Starrcade 98? I wouldn't put it at an S because the way it ended. But I would give this, I'd give it a solid A. Solid A rank. It wasn't bad. The only thing that was bad was just the way it ended with Goldberg getting beat by Kevin Nash with the help of a stun gun. But he could have held on. He could have won at Starrcade, held it for like a good few months, and then lose it. I would have been fine with that. But just the way it ended, it just sucked. But there you go. This Starrcade 98, really good show. It just sucks the way it ended. Then we go into Starrcade 99, the Battle of the Millennium. I remember watching this on pay-per-view when when everything was all staticky, because like I said, I watched the entire 1999 run of WCW, WWF, and ECW pay-per-views in static. So I didn't like actually see what was going on, but I could hear what was going on, if that makes any sense. Anyway, this one was alright. And then finally watching it back and everything in its entirety, you could definitely tell that Russo had his hands in all of this. Vince Russo, his hands were written all over this Starrcade, and it definitely showed, because they had so many gimmick matches, so many false finishes, so many disqualifications. It's like, why are we doing this? But matches like, let's see, it had Big Vito and the Johnny the Bull taking on Disco Inferno and Lash LaRue was entertaining. And then having Medusa beat Evan Courageous to become the first female Cruiserweight champion. Come on. That's just so stupid. And the Revolution, I know they took on Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and his mystery partners was the Varsity Club, which was Kevin Sullivan, Rick Steiner, and Mike Rotunda. It was a good tag match, but the way it ended, it just sucked. And Jeff Jarrett fighting Dustin Rhodes in a bunkhouse brawl. That was pretty entertaining, but other matches was like Sting fighting Lex Luger, Kevin Nash fighting Sid Vicious in a powerbomb match, and then Jeff Jarrett fighting Chris Benoit in a ladder match for the U.S. title. That was probably the best. That was probably the best match of the whole night. And then capping it all off with the WCW World Champion Bret Hart fighting Goldberg. And this was also the infamous night where Goldberg accidentally kicked Bret Hart's head off and caused him a concussion and end his career prematurely. And then it's just the way that match ended. Roddy Piper came out, and while Bret had the sharpshooter on, Roddy Piper just called for the bell. Like, wow, what's going on? It just sucked. I mean, the show was all right. It was decent, but Russo's hands were all over this. Where would I rank WCW's Starrcade 99? I want to give it an A, but I can't because I just felt dirty watching it. Like I had to take a shower after watching this. I would give it, but it wasn't bad. Like some matches were really good. It's entertaining at some points, but at the same time, it's like I see through the facades, especially after all the talk and the internet talks and everything about the show and all that. I would give it a low B. That's just putting it lightly, but yeah, I would give it a low B. No, actually, you know what? I would give it a C. especially because of Russo's influence on it. But yeah, that's it. And then here we go into, you're probably gonna be thinking like, what is this? This right here is WCW Starrcade 2000. My aunt, the same aunt that had those NES games and a couple of N64 games that I played when I was a kid and a preteen. My cousin, she was big on Sting, and she was asking my aunt to record WCW pay-per-views. So my aunt recorded New Blood Rising, Fall Brawl, Halloween Havoc, and Mayhem 2000, and Starrcade 2000, and even Sin. So, and even during this time whenever WCW got bought out by the WWF, they never made VHSs or DVDs after New Blood Rising, I think. So this is like the only copy of WCW Starrcade 2000 on VHS, as far as I know. But I'm thankful that my aunt had recorded this, because there is no other way in any kind of video format besides digital on WWF's library that you can ever watch Starrcade 2000 on. So that's actually pretty miraculous. But other than that aside, Starrcade 2000 was actually really enjoyable. It was exciting. I did watch it with my aunt and my cousin whenever she was big on Sting. And Starrcade 2000 was really exciting. We were all actually excited for this whole show. The ladder match in the beginning with 3 count, Kevin Courageous and Jamie Noble and the Young Dragons was entertaining. Lance Storm fighting the Cat was good. What other matches was good on there? The 6-man bunkhouse brawl with Jeff Jarrett and the Harris brothers taking on the Filthy Animals. That was insane. And Hugh Morris fighting this franchise Shane Douglas for the U.S. title. And Hugh Morris, you gotta give it up to him throughout 2000, going for the U.S. title against Lance Storm. That was probably one of the most engaging feuds that WCW had during that time. And then the tag titles with the Perfect Event fighting Diamond Dallas Page and Kevin Nash. That was good. And then Goldberg fighting Lex Luger. And the main event being WCW World Champion Scott Steiner taking on Sid Vicious. The match was alright, but it could have been better. And just the way it ended, the way WCW pay-per-views end is on such a sour note. And it's like, come on. Can't we at least just have a good feel-good ending of a feel-good pay-per-view for once and everything? But other than that, Starrcade 2000, I have a lot of sentimental value to it, other than most people would. But I would give Starrcade 2000 a solid 8. It was an 8. I would give it a solid 8, yeah. Because a lot of matches were really good. The main event just left on a sour note, but it was still good nonetheless. And especially going into 2001. Even though the pay-per-views just ended so freaking poorly, the whole night, all the undercards and mid-cards were really good. And it felt like WCW was getting back on track until they got bought out by WWF. And I've already talked about the whole thing about what happened to the spirit of WCW. And then that's when I started reading about World Wrestling All-Stars that happened in Australia. And I would consider this, like, it wouldn't be a Starrcade, but I would say like a good substitute for Starrcade. A World Wrestling All-Stars Inception show. If you go back and watch that, it felt like WCW. And the whole night was the 7 Deadly Sins tournament to crown a WWA World Champion. And Bret Hart was the commissioner of it. And the whole night was really good. It was entertaining. Like something that you would see out of WCW. Yeah, Jeff Jarrett fighting guys like Buff Bagwell. Then they had Conan fighting Road Dogg Brian James, which was actually really cool. And They even had guys like Nathan Jones was on here, and Juventud Guerrero fighting Psychosis in a ladder match. The whole night was all right, but it felt like Vince Russo's handprints was on it, but he wasn't on there. But it was all right. Then the main event being Jeff Jarrett fighting Road Dogg in a cage match. It was pretty entertaining, but I seen better. So where would I put WWA Inception? It wasn't the best, but it definitely was not the worst. I've seen worse than this. Believe me, I've seen worse. I would give this Inception a solid B. Let's give it a light. Let's put it lightly. Simply because there was no more Starrcades, and that was a good substitute for it. But yeah, I'll give that Inception a B. It was good. So there you have it for Starrcade and during the N64 era. Just ended on a sour note, especially Vince Russo just tarnished the entire brand. But it wasn't his fault either. He jumped on the Titanic because WCW was already in the sinking phases. But it was nobody's fault but the Turner Broadcasting people. But anyway, other than that, Starrcade was good. Is it better than most WrestleManias? Some Starrcades were alright. Some Starrcades were kind of like really good. And some just felt like it could have been a lot better. Like they just left a lot to be desired. But they are definitely not the worst things I've ever seen. Don't make me laugh. So, that being said, that's it for Starrcade. Now we're going to be jumping into Bound for Glories with total non-stop action. So, that's it for today. See y'all tomorrow, same time, same channel. And I'll see you then. This is Dwreck signing out and saying, see you